My name is Emma, and my life changed in ways I never expected when I married Henry. He was a wonderful man, kind and loving, but he also came with an important responsibility, his daughter, Madison. She was only 8 years old when I entered their lives, a little girl who had already experienced a deep loss. Her mother had been gone since she was a toddler, leaving Henry to raise her alone. When I married Henry, I hoped to bring warmth, love, and stability to their home. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I believed that with patience and kindness, Madison and I could form a bond. However, things did not go as smoothly as I had imagined. The first time I met Madison, I wanted to make a good impression. I had baked a fresh batch of chocolate chip cookies, hoping that something sweet would help us connect. I smiled and held out a plate to her. "Hi, Madison, I've heard so much about you. Do you like chocolate chip cookies?" I asked gently. She looked at the cookies, then up at me, her expression unreadable. "I guess," she mumbled, taking one cookie without meeting my eyes. Henry, noticing my hesitation, gave me a reassuring smile. He leaned in and whispered, "She's a little shy around new people, just give it some time." I nodded, determined to be patient. I understood that adjusting to a new parental figure was difficult, especially for a child who had only known one parent for so long. But as days turned into weeks and then months, I realized Madison's distance wasn't just shyness, it was something deeper. Things became even more complicated when our son, Liam, was born. I had hoped that Madison would be excited to have a sibling, but instead, she seemed to see him as a rival. Her behavior toward him was cold, sometimes even cruel. One evening, I found Liam crying in his room, his tiny hands wiping away tears. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked, pulling him into my arms. Between sniffles, he whispered, "Madison said I was a mistake, and that Daddy doesn't love me." My heart ached at his words. How could she say something so hurtful? I knew I had to talk to her. That night, I approached Madison cautiously. "Madison, why would you say that to Liam? He's your little brother." She crossed her arms and glared at me. "He's not my brother, and you're not my mom," she spat, her voice filled with anger. Henry stepped in, trying to mediate. "Madison, that's not fair. Emma is trying to be a good mother to both of you." But she refused to listen. Every attempt to get close to her was met with resistance. Even Henry's parents weren't entirely supportive. One Sunday dinner, Henry's mother pulled me aside. "Emma, you need to try harder with Madison," she advised. "She feels left out now that Liam is here." I sighed. "I am trying," I said honestly, "but she won't let me in." Henry's father chimed in. "She's just a child, Emma. You need to be the adult and keep making an effort." Their words stung because they made it seem like I wasn't doing enough, but no matter how much I tried, Madison seemed determined to push me away. As she entered her teenage years, the situation only worsened. She became more rebellious, talking back, skipping school, and ignoring house rules. Simple conversations often turned into heated arguments. One morning, I decided to confront her about missing school. "Madison, why weren't you in school yesterday?" I asked, trying to stay calm. She barely looked up from her bowl of cereal. "Didn't feel like going," she muttered. I clenched my jaw but took a deep breath. "Skipping school is not acceptable. You need to take your education seriously." She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, okay." Despite everything, I never gave up on her. I held on to the hope that one day, we would find common ground, but as the years passed, our relationship remained strained. Then, one evening, the situation took a turn I never saw coming. I received a call from the police station. My heart pounded as I answered. "Mrs. Michael, this is Officer Grayson. We've detained Madison for vandalism." I froze. Vandalism? My mind raced as I hurried to the station. When I arrived, I saw Madison sitting there, arms crossed, her face set in an expression of annoyance rather than guilt. "Madison, what were you thinking?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. She shrugged. "Relax, Emma. It's not like I killed someone, we just sprayed some paint, no big deal." I was stunned. "Not a big deal, Madison, this is illegal, you could be in serious trouble." She scoffed. "Well, I'm not. Can we go now? This place is depressing." The ride home was silent and tense. I felt exhausted, frustrated, and helpless. Henry was away on a business trip, so it was up to me to handle this alone. That night, after putting Liam to bed, I called Henry, my hands trembling as I held the phone. "We have a serious problem with Madison," I whispered, my voice filled with worry. As I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, I wondered, how much longer could I keep fighting for a bond that Madison seemed determined to reject, and more importantly, was there still hope for us to become a real family? The day Madison walked out of our home, it felt as though the very foundation of our family had cracked. She was our teenage daughter, though not by blood. She was Henry's child from his previous marriage. I had done everything I could to make her feel like she belonged, but no matter how hard I tried, she kept slipping further away. That final argument had been the breaking point. Madison had stood in the living room, arms crossed, defiant as ever. "I don't care about your stupid rules anymore. I'm leaving, and you can't stop me," she had shouted before storming out of the house, slamming the door behind her. We knew where she was headed, straight to Henry's parents, who always seemed to take her side, no matter what she did. The house was unbearably quiet without her. Henry sat beside me on the couch, staring at his phone, checking for messages that never came. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I just can't believe she left like this," he muttered, his voice thick with frustration and disbelief. I folded my arms, trying to steady the storm of emotions swirling inside me. "Henry, she's out of control. We can't just let her do whatever she wants. It's not fair, not to us, not to Liam, not even to herself." Henry's shoulders slumped. "I know, Emma. I know. But what do we do? She doesn't listen to us anymore." Determined, we decided to call his parents, hoping we could reason with them and bring Madison home. Henry dialed the number, and when his mother answered, he kept his voice as calm as possible. "Mom, we need to talk about Madison." But his mother was already on the defensive. "Oh, Henry, she's just so upset. She feels like Emma is pushing her away, like she's being treated as a problem that needs to be fixed. Sending her to therapy? Really?" I couldn't hold my tongue. "That's not it at all. We love her, but she's been making dangerous choices. We're worried about her." Tension filled the conversation. Henry's father soon chimed in, his voice laced with irritation. "Emma, you just don't understand her. She's a sensitive girl. Maybe you've been a little too harsh." I felt my temper flare. Too harsh? She's been sneaking out, breaking rules, and hanging out with the wrong crowd. "We're not punishing her, we're trying to guide her." Henry's mother sighed dismissively. "She's with us now, and we'll handle things in our own way." Henry and I exchanged a look, one filled with frustration and helplessness. "So you're just going to let her skip school and run wild?" Henry pressed, his voice rising. "She's just going through a phase. She'll settle down," his father said, brushing aside our concerns. The conversation ended, but the helplessness lingered. It felt like we had lost her completely, and to make matters worse, we were the villains in the eyes of Henry's parents. Days turned into weeks, and Madison's absence became a haunting presence in our home. Her bedroom remained untouched, her belongings collecting dust. We continued to send money to Henry's parents for her needs, but it felt meaningless, like we were funding her rebellion rather than guiding her back home. One night, as I tucked Liam into bed, he looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. "Mom, why did Madison leave? Doesn't she like us anymore?" I swallowed the lump in my throat and stroked his hair gently. "Liam, it's complicated. Madison is struggling with a lot right now. But she loves us, even if it doesn't feel like it. And no matter what, we'll always love her." Leaving Liam's room that night, the weight of our fractured family pressed down on me. The distance between us and Madison wasn't just physical, it was emotional, layered with misunderstandings and defiance. I had once dreamed of having a close bond with her, but now she felt like a stranger living under a different roof. Years passed, and our home grew quieter, more predictable. Without Madison's chaotic energy, there was a stillness that should have been comforting but instead felt incomplete. Then, out of nowhere, she returned. Henry and I were in the kitchen when the front door creaked open. Madison stepped inside, standing tall, her confidence almost unnerving. "Hey," she said casually, as if she had been gone for days instead of years. Henry's eyes widened in disbelief. "Madison? What are you doing here? She smiled, smug and self-assured. I have news. I'm getting married. I felt my heart stutter. Married? I repeated, trying to process her words. Henry and I exchanged glances, torn between shock, hope, and skepticism. That's big news, Henry managed to say. Yeah, thanks. But here's the thing, I need money for the wedding, she added bluntly, cutting straight to the point. Henry's expression hardened. Madison, you've been gone for years, and now you come back just to ask for money? She rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Dad. It's not like you can't afford it. I'm not asking for a fortune. Just enough to make my wedding special. The air in the room grew tense. Madison, it's not just about money. You can't disappear and then expect us to hand you a blank check, I said firmly. She turned to me, her tone sharp. Emma, I wasn't asking you. I was talking to Dad. I was taken aback by her coldness. We're a family. This isn't just Henry's decision, it's ours. Her gaze softened slightly as she looked back at her father. Dad, please. I just want my wedding to be perfect. Henry let out a deep sigh, running a hand through his hair. We'll think about it, Madison. She nodded, though her posture suggested she expected more. When she finally left, Henry and I sat in silence, both lost in thought. Maybe this is a chance to mend things, I finally said, my voice filled with cautious hope. Henry nodded, though his expression remained uncertain. Maybe. But if we do this, we're going to be involved in the planning. No blind trust. I agreed, but as I lay in bed that night, an uneasy feeling settled over me. Madison's return and sudden request felt less like a happy reunion and more like the beginning of another storm. And I wasn't sure if our family was strong enough to weather it.